I knew him from this great indie film Waves and from the OJ series, and then I had Googled him to see if he was funny, and, and like found a few things, and I found some stuff of him dancing, which is like the quickest way to my heart, and I was like, all right, this is perfect. And I say this, no offense to Mark or any other actor I've worked with, but he is the most in control of himself. Sorry, Mark.
Producer, director, and co-writer Mel Eslyn, and actor, co-writer Mark Duplass.
Hi, everybody.
Well, it is great to have you here. So the movie premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival last September, but your relationship, your collaboration goes back many, many years. The one I love is a personal fave that you produced and you were in. But how did this come for you to write this together? How did that come about? And then for you to direct?
Yeah, you want to start?
Yeah. So I had this sort of initial germ of an idea of, hi Joe, of there are these two guys and they're in a dome and they're fiercely arguing about Super Mario Brothers and they have nothing better to do. And I'm a big like instinct person. Like I didn't know what the themes were going to be. I just sort of started cranking with that. And I was like, yeah, okay, that could be threat to survival. But I don't know. I don't really know what this is going to be. And so Mel's been running my company for the last, 8 years or so. We've been working together for a long time, since when we were making movies with Lynn Shelton years ago. So we were doing a little retreat out in Palm Springs, and I was like, I kind of ran out of ideas on this movie. So like, I think it's dead. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Like, let me look at it, And so I think what I realized sort of now that I look at it is like with those two guys arguing, I think, I grew up in the South. I went to an all-male Jesuit high school. I was taught that like you are our future, you are the best and the brightest, and you must lead with your strength and your ideally enormous penis leading you the whole way. Like this was it, and I've been like slowly unwinding that my whole life. And so I got that far with it. And then I was like, but I don't have more. So I gave it to Mel, who kind of was able to more successfully turn this movie into what it became.
Take it from there, Mel.
I mean, I always call Mark Duplass like the longest. Oh my God, I was on such a path, and then I met Mark, and I took not a wrong turn, just a different turn. And then 10 years or so went by, and I was like, I forgot to direct a movie. But it was, and Mark always knew that and was really great and was always pitching me a lot of ideas. And I always say that Mark pitches like the best kernels, and then somebody else comes in and helps him kind of finish it, and this was the kernel that like Mark said when he pitched it and we talked about it and we threw all these ideas in, he's like, let me take a stab. And then he sent me that email that was like, I don't think there's anything here. And I was like, no dude, there is, and I feel it, and like let me run with it. And the pandemic had just hit, and I was stuck at home, and
a lot of time.
and we had an outline we'd kind of done together, and so just kind of took the first stab at it, and then we went back and forth, and I think it felt right too. We talked a lot about if Mark was the right person to play this role. That was a big discussion, and once we'd settled on Mark, it felt right too that I direct something that felt so vulnerable with our relationship and trust.
Yeah, we've been looking for the right project for Mel to officially come on as a director, because she's been such like a critical creative part of our company. For those of you who have been on set with a very strong creative producer, we work with a lot of first-time directors. Mel is heavily involved, and so it's been this thing for us where it's like, I love Mel. I want to support her. I need her as the head of my company doing all this stuff, but how can she do that and still be fulfilled as a person and direct her own movie? So we had to be very strategic about carving out the space for her to be able to do this and still uphold everything. So yeah, it's hard to be like the mom and the director. Yeah.
Well, when you started working on the film, when you started writing it, and you said that once the pandemic hit, you had a little more time to work on it. How did the pandemic like influence the direction that the screenplay eventually took?
I actually don't know if it did at all. Yeah, it was always two guys stuck in a room together. So I think I more was just like, yes, now the world will have a little bit more understanding of this, and it won't be so.
We'll just look smarter, like we designed it that way, but it was always that way.
That's what I thought when I saw the movie.
Definitely not.
How did you were sort of going back and forth, Mark, on whether or not you were going to play Billy? What made you decide to go, you know what, I am going to play Billy? And what was your point of connection with that?
I mean, it was such an evolution, and it's such a long journey, but I think that the best way I can describe it is this movie was brought together by a bunch of different people's very unique perspectives. And I think that me sort of realizing my own limitations and what I could bring to it, not only creatively, but some of my own, blind spots. And then bringing Mel in as like, okay, Mel's like this total science dork, and she has all this stuff to bring in. And then Mel brings in this queer female perspective, where I have this like Southern male perspective, and then we bring those together, and then we realize, oh shit, something's going to happen with Billy in this movie, and then we're running out of our own experience. Then we bring in Zachary Drucker, who's a producer of ours, who has this trans female perspective that we couldn't really understand. And then Sterling comes in and is like, I grew up in St. Louis, and there's like a specific like black homophobia thing that like you guys need to know about, that charged that moment way up in the script that we hadn't really seen. So it was all these building of things, and when it came for me to figure out like, am I gonna play Billy or not, it wasn't about me deciding or Mel. It was like a quorum. We were like this hive mind, and so there was but it was a complex decision for sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I called Zachary Drucker just as a friend to be like, can I just tell you about this movie that I'm making, and I want Mark to play this role because I trust him. But what are your thoughts with him being a cis man? And she's like, let me read the script. And she read it, and she's like, this has to be a cis man, definitely Mark, and I want to produce it.
Wow. Okay, so you got Billy.
Yeah.
So how did you get Ray? Like, what were you looking for in the perfect Ray?
We were looking for Sterling
K. Brown. We were looking for Sterling K. Brown. We did that stupid thing where we fell in love with the idea of Sterling on like page 22, and we're like, we're going to be fucking heartbroken if we don't get him.
No, there was a note in the margins from that first retreat where I was like, Mark and SKB, and genuinely, like, I was like, we just have to try, like, and so I'm not dreaming about it and wishing and hoping, and this never, ever, ever happens. And we sent it to him, and he read it overnight. Yeah, which I've never had before.
He called us the next morning, and he's
from a moving vehicle that he was driving.
Oh, jeez.
But he had his aviator glasses on. He looked so fucking good.
He did look really cool.
And we called him, and he picked up the FaceTime, and before he even said hello, he goes, am I gonna kiss Mark Duplass? And I was like,
I said, I hope.
Definitely before we get to set, but yeah, we'll see what happens on set. So.
Well, that has to be the best acceptance of a screenplay that you've ever heard. Someone say when they were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this."
Yes,
it was pretty incredible. Yeah, I talked to a lot with him yesterday. We had like a long press day together, and he really, I think, for the first time, revealed how kind of scared he was to do this, and not scared in a way of like, I don't know if I can perform it, but scared in a way of like, I don't know that I'm going to be like connected and human enough to do that. He's such a very genuinely humble and loving person. So we fucking lucked out. That's really it.
So part of obviously screenwriting is when you get your cast and everybody's locked in, maybe the screenplay will change a little, maybe it'll evolve further. Did that happen once the three of you really got to talking further about Biosphere, especially when it came to Billy and Ray, their relationship, and the surprises that we learn about them on the way?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and I are pretty used to improvising as we go on most of our films. This one was actually pretty scripted going in, I think just because we had time being stuck at home. So we really drilled in on that script back and forth. But we never stop writing, and that's like a beautiful thing that I think we do. And also there were a few times where Sterling was like, do you guys ever stop? Because we would switch things up on him, and he had spent the whole night rehearsing his monologues. But it was, I mean, it always takes shape and form as you go and moves, and Sterling definitely took that character. And I think what happened is Mark and I would watch him and kind of write as we went for him.
And he would bring a lot of stuff, like when he was like lifting weights while we're talking about, it was going to have like, that's all Sterling.
He would do that all the time without thinking. And I was like, can you do
Let's
that?
get those weights, bro. Get them going. Show us how masculine you really are.
And his improv was the strep butt.
The strep butt, that was a big thing for
him.
Well, I'm really curious how, when it came, this is what they call like a two-hander, at least that's how the trades refer to movies with just two people in them.
Sometimes they say chamber piece.
A chamber piece, yeah.
When they're really feeling themselves.
But I'm curious, Mel, like what were there certain films that inspired you for what you were going for with this one?
No, I wish I could say there was. I mean, Mark and I, like, for fun, watch Biodome.
Sure. That's a great movie.
What is the other one? Running? Is it Silent Running?
Yeah.
Silent Running.
Yeah.
Not that we were attempting to make either of those, but no, I mean, I think Mark and I both have, like, we're the king and queen maybe of two-handers.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what we love to do.
Yeah, we do a lot of them, and I think we were, like, we're running out of steam, and then we're like, just one more, and we'll make it really different.
So when it came to, for your directorial debut, you have a film that has two people in it, and it's one set. Mm-hmm. So was that like, boy, this is going to be a breeze?
I don't think it's ever going to be a breeze, but it was a kindness, like a mental health kindness I did to myself of, I've been that producer who helps the director make their first film, and I have, like, it's a blessing that I've gotten to watch so many people learn, and I learn the most from watching them make their mistakes, which all of us do. And the biggest mistake I always saw from first-time directors was just taking on too much, trying to do too much with that first one. And I was like, I want to be kinder, and I want to put in somebody I really trust who I can speak to with very little words, and just, no pressure.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, though, is like it is in its own way extremely difficult to make a watchable movie with just two people in one location. Like
I wasn't thinking about that.
And we didn't do, I mean, this is like a small distinction, but like I don't know how to direct a movie like this. Like when I make the two-handers, I make them like 76 minutes and they get to 80 minutes with credits, and they're basically like an extended one-act play. This is an hour and 45 minutes with multiple acts that, I mean, and the tonal balances that you did. I mean, this was Mel like hammering this thing in editorial. Like this is her movie. Like, so you made production a little easier on yourself in some ways, but I think post-production this is one of the hardest movies I've seen go through post-production.
You're right. Production was much
tonally
more
getting this stuff right was near impossible.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask about the tone, about the balance, because it's a drama, it's got a lot of humor. There's a sci-fi element to it, obviously, but then there's this like it's very, very profound. There's a lot of twists and throughout the screenplay that keep increasing the stakes. And certainly the backstory of these guys who you think are just, you don't really know much about them, think, oh, maybe they're scientists or whatever, but then you find out who they really are. Like, how did you achieve that balance? Like, I mean, what were the challenges to be like, to stay that focused to get exactly that right balance?
I mean, I'm a big believer in making people laugh. I love like every 10 minutes if I can drop a laugh, because even if people are checked out or not into the science stuff, if I can make them laugh, they're back in at least for a second. So that was a big thing, I think, with this one, especially with the heady themes and the things we were trying to do and tackle with this. But
you mean Dumb and Dumber meets Waiting for Godot? You mean
right,
is that what you're talking about? What a fucking idea that was.
So many weird tones. I genuinely still am like, how did we do this and pull this off? Because it is Dumb and Dumber in many, many ways. And that was the first reference we had. Dumb
and Dumber. Well, there you go.
It was like, yeah, Brechtian Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, that's what's up now.
So what makes Mel, with all the directors you've worked with throughout television, throughout independent film, throughout the bigger budget stuff, what makes Mel a unique director, a great actor's director?
Fastest learning curve and adaptability to creative ideas that I have ever seen. And I say that as someone who is deeply proud at my own speed and ability to recognize that, you know what, these people who are giving me this feedback, they're not out to destroy me, even though my ego is feeling like this right now. I still need to go pout for 15 minutes. I still need to have a binge eat meal and then come back. And I don't know where you got that, or if it's in your DNA, or if we've just developed it through the years, or maybe it's the trust that we have. But when the sensitivity to something not working and the complete ability to shift immediately and detach from whether it was your idea that didn't work out or something, that's feels like you are a 95-year-old director on your last movie.
So how fast was this shoot? How many days?
I think it was 15.
You're not right. Wow. It was 13.
Well, we tell them it's 15.
Yeah.
So it sounds bigger.
All right, so it sounds bigger, yeah. It was 13, and there was some little extras in there. And there were gentle days. They were more we tried to do 10-hour days because we were stuck in the dome. We would actually, we would have to seal ourselves in there so you wouldn't see seals on the walls. So it really felt and smelled as you imagine by the time we got through it. But to Mel's point earlier about not to be preachy, but I really believe in this not biting off more than you can chew, with your first movie or with a lot of your movies. I think that part of what made this movie successful is you actually could have gone in and tried to shoot a movie like this in 8 or 9 days, right? And so when you think, oh my God, you only shot the movie in 13 days, it's crazy. But really, we had our lighting setups all ready to go. There was only so many places we could go. And so we were actually able to create a sense of abundance inside of independent film by giving ourselves a few extra days because it was designed so small. And that's been the key to everything we've been doing lately, is trying to remove the scarcity mindset from independent film by saying, let's not make a $1 million movie for $500,000. We'll just be living in scarcity. Let's make a movie that should cost $500 for $1,000. And we will have abundance. As crazy as that sounds.
13 days. Wow. That is incredible. But I'm curious, because it was sort of just in this one location, did you actually have the luxury of shooting chronologically?
We did for the most part. Yeah, there were a few things just with a few continuity, but not much. I think it was almost all in order.
We did some fish stuff. We had a fish person.
Oh, right. That was it. We only had a few days with the fish.
And we wanted to be very... We all kind of fell in love with the fish. Our fish guy was named Peter Fish.
And he slept with the fishes.
And he slept in the dome.
At night with the fishes.
Aww.
Yes. He was Luca Brasi. He slept with the fishes.
So when exactly did you film? What was the production date?
It was August of 2021.
21.
August of 2021.
So the pandemic was still kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the dream shoot, really.
Oh yeah, it worked. I mean, other than wearing masks, directing is never fun. But yeah, no.
Goodness is we don't have to talk to each other, so we always know what's happening. That's
I know,
fine.
we could just read each other's eyes.
Yeah. What surprised you about working with Sterling? You knew going into it he's gonna be great, but what surprised you during the shoot?
I mean, he knows this. I've never seen This Is Us, so I knew him from this great indie film Waves and from the OJ series, and then I had Googled him to see if he was funny, and found a few things, and I found some stuff of him dancing, which is the quickest way to my heart, and I was like, all right, this is perfect. But I don't think I still underestimated him. And I say this, no offense to Mark or any other actor I've worked with, but he is the most in control of himself. Sorry, Mark. He is so in control. I mean, there's that scene at the end where it's 1 tear out of each eye. and he did it once, and it was so powerful. And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know I don't expect that again. I would just love one more. And he's like, you want the same thing? And I'm like, yeah, that would be amazing. But of course, and like it was just boom, boom.
It was like in Boogie Nights when he does the cum shot twice. It was, we were like, holy shit, he's gonna do it again.
But he's so in control of his emotions, his execution, his body movements. That was the most surprising.
But I agree with that. And sometimes with that training and that mechanics, there is a lack of naturalism and a lack of silliness that goes along with it. And he has both. And it's kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
All right. So you get to that moment where you have to film you have to film the scene that you brought up at the beginning of this conversation, the kiss. So take us through it.
I mean, I actually think it was an incredible learning lesson for everybody, that scene. And I think it's important to say this, that we brought in an intimacy coordinator, and that was one of our first times working with an intimacy coordinator. And originally I think I did it because I knew Mark so well, and I was like, I want to make sure we all feel comfortable. And it was this great learning lesson for the intimacy coordinator to go, no, we're trying to create a standard, and this is something you should have no matter what. You just assume anybody needs that safe space for uncomfortability. And I found that so amazing, and it just like clicked suddenly, and I'm like, absolutely, I'm never shooting anything again with any form of intimacy without somebody like this on set. And so that was a big part of it. I think just everybody being able to talk. But I don't know. How did you feel about it?
I mean, honestly, it just felt like something I was excited to do. I had zero trepidation and fear about it. I love acting in this. I love being with Sterling. Mel and I talked about, letting the cinema of that scene be a little bit more loose so that we could run longer takes and just get into it and just start going, rather than like chunking it up and getting into our head and allowing for some improvisation to happen, which is like, that's where I'm at my most comfortable anyway. It was just so fun. I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any trepidation or fear about it at all. It was fun.
So do you take, in terms of doing the longer takes, which is always like, an actor's dream to be able to be that organic and natural in a scene that's being shot, but how many times would you do certain scenes? Like, did you like feel like, try to do it on the first take, or no more than 3 or 4 takes?
I mean, I hate to put a number on it, but I have just learned, like, if you're going to make a movie in 13 days, you need to stay that like less than 4 takes unless you really, really need it. And I just don't believe in putting an actor through, especially something incredibly emotional or a long take. If they get it in 2, it's like, get the one, get the safety, and sometimes get a third for a different flavor. And if I can get that, I'm usually good. And I think the only reason I had that confidence on my first film is because I've just made so many films and I've seen that happen.
And what I would say, I would give you credit for on this is, Mel's working out with our cinematographer Nate, who we've done a bunch with, and I, as a producer and a co-writer and an actor, tend to just really value performance and the organic nature of the performance. And for my subjective taste, I can kind of let the cinema go by the wayside, see all of my early movies, which are highly out of focus. And so I think Mel did a good job of being like, let's take that and honor that. But there are also going to be scenes in here where we can have excellent cinema and not sacrifice the performance. But also when it comes time, like the sex scene, like, I'm going to give you that thing that you need because it'd be good for the movie too. So I think you found a really great balance of like, giving us excellent cinematography, at times when it wasn't going to make the performances feel less organic,
How long was your first cut?
Not that long. Yeah. I was trying to hit a nice clean 90 to 98 minutes. So it was like 103 maybe. Yeah. And then left room to cut.
Yeah, but then we tested the movie pretty thoroughly
heavily
in terms of the tonal management. When I say test, not like, in an AMC theater with scores, like really smart filmmakers, peers, and always try to bring in someone who isn't a part of the business to get their sense of it and get, trusted people who won't yes man us and will tell us the truth. And that was very helpful for this process where we
absolutely.
we learned some things where we thought, boy, we thought we were overstaying our welcome here and people wanted more of that. I can't believe it. Great. Or, we thought this joke was killing and everybody's like, yeah, that was hammy and I was way ahead of you. And so all those things were very helpful.
Oh, so that's going to ask you, like, what were some of the takeaways from those screenings that actually helped the film?
I mean, it's always, to me, like, I can tell when you lose people. I think it's just propulsion is like the number one thing when you're making a film. And I think if you're gonna slow things down and anybody falls out, there's got to be a really strong reason why. But I think with this one, we were so conscious the entire way to bring in all the perspectives. We had such a diverse team every step of the way, even through to the feedback. So it was really great to bring in so many different voices who could tell us, like, when he says this line, this is going to speak to my experience in this way that's different than yours as a cis man, or as a queer woman, so everybody kind of brought that, and we were able to really fine tune and say, this is what's hitting the right level for all of us to feel represented in here. And
the score was a really interesting thing that happened too, because it's a pretty patiently paced film in a lot of ways if you just look at the cutting of it. But when the score was able to come in and bring some of that sort of low grade tension, it buoyed people's attention span and carried them along in some of the places that we weren't doing as well with the temp
and I think
score.
It being a human voice too does something subconsciously that makes you feel a little bit of propulsion, feel like there's one other person in the dome at times.
Well, we got some questions from audience members right now. I just wanted to, this is what happens when you get older. So first question is for both of you. So did any comedy films influence your performance? And you specifically have brought up Biodome that but were there other films that kind of influenced your performance or your direction in the film?
I weirdly, like, the thing that's always most inspirational to me, I watch 90% of the stuff I watch is documentaries. It's just what I love. So I am always aspiring to bring something in the level of reality to my performances. That's everything I'm going for all the time. And then in terms of, like, comedy stuff, I definitely early on, I was like, I'm going to pitch my voice a little bit differently in this movie, because I think it will be interesting, and I don't know why, but I kind of like trust those kinds of instincts. But it's weird. I mean, you said earlier, like, there was no comp for this movie, like, it's kind of not how we think for some reason, whatever. We're always trying to find our own thing, I guess.
Yeah. I know, it's so hard. Like, comedy wise, I was just like listening to the 14-year-old boy humor inside me, which is kind of my humor. But and also, to be honest too, thinking about all the sitcoms that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s, and this kind of bro-y humor that I think is really funny. And then also, though, there's a certain point where you can find the things that don't hold up anymore. We're more aware now, and I think really, like, trying to ride the line on that humor, so that we could kind of point that out, and the toxic masculinity that isn't funny, in that way
That's
anymore.
That's a really good point. We did talk a lot about, like, the those aren't pillows moment in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and, like, the morning after the sex scene is specifically kind of shot to feel like that scene and to put you in the place as an audience of, like, this is going to be so funny. I really want to laugh that these two men are intimate and they're uncomfortable with each other, right? But then to kind of thwart it and not play the joke and then just be like, yeah, I'm okay.
We even wrote it in the script that said, you think this is going to be a those aren't pillows moment, but it's not that moment.
Next question is from Mark D. Oh no, that's for Mark D. So I can't read the name, but I can read the question, which is one example of best and worst things that have changed since going from a micro budget to larger budgets.
Oh, it's an interesting question. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to be straight up. Like, the level of pampering that I get on the morning show, it's just wonderful, you guys. I just fucking love it. I show up and they have my breakfast burrito as I like it and my coffee, and they're so sweet and respectful, and they give me my time. And what that does for me is it buys me the patience, and it makes me feel excited to go back and return to like run around like idiots like Mel and I do when we make our movies together. So it very much helps me with that. So that's the good part about it. I mean, what's the worst part about it? It's hard for me to say. I'm just such an appreciative person of everything that I get to do. I mean, I can't believe I have a day job like the morning show that pays me what they pay me, and then I can go and pay for movies like this that we get to make together. So whenever any little thing comes up, I'm just like, so what? Like, boo fucking who? Like, you know, it's just the best. I mean, look, you know, there are definitely times when, you know, I feel like, oh, we've got 4 big producers on this project. If it's like $100 million movie, you know, and we've lost the clear-headed vision of where we are headed, and now we're just doing the lowest common denominator note that appeals to most people, and that can be a little like sad at times when you're in the middle of that, you know.
Absolutely.
But to be perfectly honest, usually I'm just like, but I'm okay because I'm gonna make my paycheck and go make my creative stuff with Mel, so I'm good. So I'm usually buoyed.
Okay, last question is from Lynn Allinger for you, Mel. What messages from the film do you feel are the most important about relating to the world today?
Man, there's so many, but I think the way I'd encapsulate all of it is that I think, you know, our society is very fearful of anybody who's trying to change a definition or push a boundary or define themselves in a way that doesn't fit society's definitions. And I think there's a lot of fear around that kind of pushing of personal definitions. And so what I really hope with this film is to bring about more hope as opposed to fear when we allow ourselves to individually define ourselves and who we are and whatever that means physically, mentally, sexually. I think that would be my hopeful takeaway.
I think and that is in the direction, in my opinion, like that. I remember watching the first cut of the movie. I remember feeling like I had some of my own little blind spots pointed out to me, you know, and as a viewer, as a person, but I felt like it was done very warmly and sweetly by someone who loves me, and it wasn't someone looking to take me down and tell me I was wrong because of it. It was someone who was looking to kind of like carry me and put me in their shirt pocket a little bit and be like, yeah, I know you missed that, but like, it's cool. We're going to figure it out, you know? And like, I would love people to have that feeling.
One more question I have for you, Mark, is I'm surprised this question does not come up more often in all these like red carpets or sit down interviews that people do with filmmakers, is how do you remember your lines? How do you do it?
I can only speak to my own process. Yeah. I'm like a math person, and so I kind of go into a different part of my brain, and I don't perform anything when I'm memorizing lines. It's completely just data that goes inside of my brain. So to me, it's easier to hold on to it if there are 0 colors. It's a binary code of letters that goes inside of my brain, and I put it in there, and then the flavor doesn't come out until I hit the set. And then another thing that I do is slightly controversial. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, but depending on the scene, I don't memorize my lines all the way. I want to be slightly reaching for them when I'm in takes 1 through 3 or 4. And I think it gives me a sense of extemporaneousness that helps. Now, I don't do that on the morning show when I've got a walk and talk with 3 massive movie stars. I'm like, no, I don't want to I don't want to fuck this up for that. So I do nail it on those kinds of days. But yeah, treating it like data helps me.
Whatever works, absolutely. Mel, Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.